The quiet hum of the apartment was deceptive. Too peaceful. Too still. From inside the narrow darkness of the hallway closet, Alexei crouched between winter coats and a forgotten vacuum cleaner, his breathing controlled, deliberate. He could feel the steady thump of his own heart beneath the fabric of his tailored shirt. Not from fear, from anticipation. He had planned everything: the suitcase by the door, the fabricated business trip, the message he left on the kitchen counter. Back Sunday night, don't wait up. A perfectly executed lie, ironic in its symmetry. Now he was the one hiding, waiting, watching. Through the slats of the closet door, he had a narrow view of the living room. Their living room. Soft yellow lighting pooled across the rug. The scent of vanilla from the diffuser drifted through the air. Everything looked exactly as it always did. Welcoming, warm, except it wasn't. Alex had suspected for months. The late returns from yoga, the sudden need for space, the rehearsed affection. It had all rung false. So he stopped asking. He started watching. He installed discrete cameras in the hallway and bedroom, devices small enough to be missed, but sharp enough to capture everything. And today, he decided to see it with his own eyes, not through a screen, not from a file. A quiet click jolted him. The front door, footsteps, 2 sets. He hit record on the audio device in his palm. The red light blinked silently. Laughter filled the space. First, her laugh, Katerina, sweet, musical. The same laugh that once melted him now chilled his blood. You weren't followed, were you? She asked playfully, dropping her keys into the ceramic bowl near the entrance. Relax, came a deeper voice. Artyom, no one cares about your fairy tale marriage. Their silhouettes moved into view. She kicked off her heels, revealing freshly painted toes. He threw his leather jacket over the back of the couch like he owned the place. Alex noted every detail. Her quick glance at the door, the casual toss of her purse, the ease with which Artyom opened the wine cabinet. So, this is the kingdom, Artyom smirked, lifting the wedding photo from the shelf. Cute. You two look like a toothpaste ad. Katerina snorted, plucking the frame from his hands. Please, he's so boring. He probably thinks I still sleep in his old t-shirt when he's gone. You don't? Artyom teased. She leaned in, brushing her lips against his ear. I burn them. They both laughed. Alex didn't blink, couldn't. Her voice sliced deeper than any knife. Honestly, I don't even think he suspects, she said, uncorking a bottle. He's so trusting. It's adorable, in a sad way. Let's toast, Artyom raised his glass. To blind love. No, she corrected, lifting hers. To well-played roles. Alex clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay hidden. Not yet, not yet. This wasn't just betrayal. This was theater, and he intended to bring down the curtain himself. From the darkness, Alex watched as Katerina curled her legs beneath her on the couch, the same way she used to do when they'd binge-watched documentaries together, nestled under one throw blanket. Now, that blanket was draped across her and him. Artyom. Leather, tattoos, that cocky half-smile. He poured her another glass of wine like he'd done it 100 times before. Maybe he had. Maybe this wasn't the first time they played house while Alex pretended to be away. He shifted slightly in the closet, careful not to bump anything. His legs were numb, but his senses were electric. Every word sharpened the truth. You know what's funny? Artyom said, plucking a photo from the shelf. This guy really thinks you're some kind of angel. The way he looks at you in these pictures, I almost feel bad. Don't, Katerina said flatly. He's not a victim. He just believed what he wanted to believe. People like him always do. Alex's fingers tightened around the recorder. The calm in her voice, it was rehearsed. There was no guilt. No hesitation, only calculation. You've got a whole performance down, huh? Artyom said. Smiles, dinner, texts like nothing's happening. She laughed. Please. Half the time, I don't even have to fake it. He's so emotionally self-sufficient, it's like he wants to be lied to. Artyom whistled low, eyes full. Katerina smirked, then got up and walked to the bookshelf. Her fingertips traced the spine of an old photo album. The album. Their wedding. The lake. Her in that vintage ivory dress. Him in a navy blue suit. Grinning like a fool. She pulled it out slowly. God, this thing, she murmured, flipping it open. What a joke. Artyom stood behind her, looking over her shoulder. You actually keep this out in the open? Symbolism, she said. It's like a decoy, like a stage prop. He still thinks we're in Act 1. Alex leaned forward, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. Why not just end it? Artyom asked, more curious than concerned. Because endings require explanations, she said, and I hate explaining myself. Besides, as long as he believes the illusion, I still get the best of both worlds. Damn, and I thought I had issues. You do, she smirked, leaning into him. Alex stared at the sliver of hallway beyond the door. He could walk out now, stop the show. But he didn't. Not yet. There was more to learn. Something she hadn't said out loud yet, but it was coming. He could feel it. Artyom's hand reached for the album again, flipping to the middle. This one, he said, you two on the dock. He's holding you like you're his whole world. Katerina's expression darkened just for a moment. He was. I mean, he is. But that's the problem. When someone gives you everything, it stops feeling special. It starts to feel obligatory. You're bored, Artyom said. She nodded slowly. I wanted more. Excitement. Chaos. Not just safety. Alex closed his eyes for half a second. Not in sadness. In recognition. The final piece had clicked into place. This wasn't about love. It never was. Katerina craved volatility, passion without responsibility, and Alex had become too stable for her to find him interesting. She wasn't choosing Artyom. She was rejecting the quiet strength of someone who loved her without condition. The sound of a lighter flicking open broke his thoughts. What if we burn it? Katerina asked. The album? Artyom raised an eyebrow. It's symbolic, right? She said, lifting the lighter toward the glossy photo. Let's turn the lie into ashes. Alex stepped out of the closet. Silence crashed into the room like a glass shattering on tile. Katerina froze. Artyom flinched, instinctively stepping back. The lighter trembled in her hand. Alex said nothing. He didn't have to. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small voice recorder. Pressed play, and let her words burn everything down instead. The room had become a vacuum, every breath of air sucked out by the sudden weight of truth. Katerina stood still, one hand clutching the unlit lighter, the other frozen over the wedding album. Her expression flickered, a glitch in her perfect mask. Artyom, shirt half unbuttoned, backed up instinctively, glancing toward the door like a man realizing he'd wandered into a minefield. Alex pressed play. He's so emotionally self-sufficient. It's like he wants to be lied to. Katerina's voice spilled from the recorder, clear and cruel, mocking and composed. She didn't move, didn't speak. The recording continued. Laughter, clinking glasses, another offhanded comment. I don't even have to fake it. Artyom shifted his weight, ran a hand through his hair. Dude, look, I didn't know you were... Save it, Alex said flatly without looking at him. The voice on the recording kept speaking. But Alex muted it and dropped the device on the coffee table with a hollow clack. Silence again. Finally, Katerina inhaled. This is insane. Alex turned toward her, expression unreadable. Is it? You were spying on me? I was watching my life unravel in real time. I just wanted to know who was holding the scissors. Katerina stepped back, her heel bumping into the couch. You don't understand what it's been like. Stop. The words sliced through her like ice. Alex's voice remained calm, but his presence had changed. He no longer looked like the man who curled her hair behind her ear in the morning, or who brought her herbal tea when she couldn't sleep. There was steel in his eyes now. A presence she hadn't expected. A power she no longer held. I don't want an apology, he said. I don't want an explanation. I just wanted clarity, and now I have it. Artyom cleared his throat. I should probably go. Alex turned to him slowly. No, stay, please. Katerina blinked. What? Alex gave her a half smile, calm, composed, terrifying in its control. I think he should hear this too. He walked to the kitchen counter, picked up a set of keys, and held them out. These are yours, he said. You'll need them. I'm not coming back. Katerina's face twisted. You're leaving? Alex nodded. You thought you'd end this on your terms, maybe torch a few memories for theatrical flair, but here's the truth, Katerina. I'm the one walking away, and I want you to remember this moment every time you try to rewrite it. She looked rattled for the first time. You can't just... I can, and I will. He placed the keys beside the wedding album she'd nearly burned. I built this life, he said quietly. You just decorated it. Her eyes flared. You're trying to humiliate me. No, Alex replied. I'm just letting you experience what honesty feels like. It feels cold, doesn't it? He turned to Artyom. You can stay if you like, but I'd suggest asking her how many others came before you. That mask she wears? It doesn't just come off for one man. Orium said nothing. Alex walked toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. He turned around, meeting Katerina's eyes for the last time. I don't hate you, he said. I pity you. Because this chaos you crave, it won't fill you. One day, you'll look around and realize everyone left you behind. He opened the door, cool night air drifted in, and when that happens, don't call me. He stepped out into the hallway. Behind him, the apartment, his apartment, their apartment, was now nothing more than a stage set for betrayal. As the door clicked shut, Alex felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Not rage, not sadness, relief. It was over. He took the elevator in silence, walked out into the cool evening. The city hummed with quiet life. Cars in the distance, wind brushing through branches. Somewhere, music played faintly from an open window. He breathed. For the first time in weeks, no, months, his lungs expanded without resistance. His phone buzzed. A message from a friend, just checking in. You okay, man? He stared at the screen, then typed back. Better than ever. He didn't head to a bar. Didn't go to a hotel. Instead, he drove toward the lake. The quiet one, where they'd once shared a picnic in their first year together. The place where she had looked at him like he was her whole world. It was the place he'd come to remind himself who he was before her. He sat on a bench overlooking the water, pulled an old photo from his wallet, the two of them, laughing, caught mid-sentence. He looked at it for a long moment, then tore it in half. A soft smile crossed his lips. Let her burn the album if she wants. He'd already let it go. The apartment was still. No music, no laughter, no scent of vanilla candles. Katerina sat on the edge of the couch, the half-burned wedding album still open beside her. A single photo had curled at the corner from the lighter's heat. Her veil dancing in the summer breeze, Alex holding her hand with eyes full of unguarded hope. Now there was only the smell of scorched paper and expensive wine. She touched the edge of the photo, her fingers lingering, not out of nostalgia but uncertainty. For the first time in years, she hadn't controlled the narrative. Alex had walked away, calm, untouched, in power. She hadn't expected that. She expected screaming, maybe even begging, anything but the clean, clinical extraction he had performed on their shared life. Artyom had left shortly after, muttering something half-hearted about needing space. His tone had changed the moment Alex closed the door behind him. The thrill was gone. The risk wasn't sexy anymore. But she didn't stop him. There was nothing left to seduce. The silence began to gnaw at her. In the past, when men left, they came back, eventually. They reached out, drunk or nostalgic, wanting to relive the fire, the chaos. But she knew, somehow, that Alex wouldn't. That terrified her more than she could admit. Miles away, Alex was no longer thinking about her. The lake was quiet. He sat with his coat zipped up and a coffee in hand from a nearby 24-hour diner. The stars above were blurred by city haze, but the dark water was still and honest in its own way. His phone remained silent. He wasn't waiting for it to ring, not anymore. The ache in his chest had dulled into something steadier, something constructive. Not bitterness, not even sorrow, just clarity. For years he had mistaken stability for stagnation. He gave her consistency, protection, loyalty. He thought those were foundations. She saw them as limitations. Maybe she had always been bored. Maybe she had always needed an audience. But Alex had learned something in the hours since walking away. He no longer wanted to be a character in anyone else's performance. The next morning, Katerina stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at herself under the sharp, revealing light. No filters, no soft focus, just her. The reflection didn't lie. Mascara smudged beneath her eyes, lips slightly chapped, a fine crease forming between her brows. When had that started? She looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from something deeper, like the exhaustion of wearing someone else's skin for too long. Her phone lit up with a message from a mutual friend. Is it true? Did Alex really leave? No emoji, no exclamation point, just the flat punch of reality. Katerina didn't answer. Instead, she walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared blankly at the untouched takeout she had ordered the night before. Everything was quiet. No footsteps in the hallway, no clink of Alex's spoon, stirring sugar into his coffee. He used to hum sometimes in the morning. Nothing tuneful, just a habit. That small, human sound had driven her crazy once. Now, The absence of it made the room feel cavernous. She sank into a chair at the kitchen island, letting the silence press in. Alex returned to the apartment once, briefly. It was 2 days later. Katerina was at work. He knew her schedule by heart, after all. He let himself in with the second set of keys, the ones she'd forgotten to ask for. He didn't linger. He moved like a ghost through the space, collecting only the essentials, a few books, a jacket from the closet, his grandfather's watch from the drawer. Then he saw the wedding album, still open, still singed. He picked it up, paused, then carefully closed it and placed it on the highest shelf in the hallway closet, behind an old suitcase and a dusty vase. He didn't throw it away. He didn't need to. Some memories didn't deserve fire. They deserved to be buried. As he turned to leave, he noticed a note taped to the fridge. It's 2 words. I'm sorry. No name, no plea, just the words. He stared at it for a long moment, then peeled it off and folded it once. Neatly, he slid it into his pocket. Not out of forgiveness, but because he wanted to remember the silence that followed it. That evening, Alex sat in a quiet cafe on the other side of town. A place he used to visit before the mortgage, the obligations, the performance. He sipped a black coffee, watching people move through their lives, arguing, laughing, oblivious to the quiet man at the corner table, rediscovering himself. A woman across from him caught his eye. She wasn't flashy, no dramatic makeup. A weathered leather bag beside her and a novel half read on the table. She looked up, caught his gaze, and smiled. Not flirtatious, just human. Alex smiled back, nodding slightly. He didn't approach her. Not tonight. He wasn't looking to fill a void. He was just learning to sit in his own company again and finally feel whole. Sunday morning came without drama, no storm, no messages, no apologies waiting in his inbox. Just sunlight slipping between the blinds of Alex's new apartment, smaller, quieter, no echo of footsteps other than his own. The walls were bare, the furniture minimal, but for the first time in a long while, the space breathed. Alex stood barefoot on the cold kitchen tiles, sipping his coffee slowly. No sugar, no cream, just black, bitter, and honest. Like truth. There was a strange peace in the simplicity. A week had passed since he left. No confrontation followed, no attempts to lure him back. Katerina hadn't tried to reach him, and that silence told him everything he needed to know. She wasn't sorry enough to fight, or maybe she had already moved on in her mind long before the affair ever began. That no longer mattered, because he had moved on too. Later that afternoon, Alex drove out to the coast. Not the lake this time. This was farther, quieter, a place he had discovered during a solo business trip years ago. Back then, he thought about bringing her here. Now, he came alone. Not in mourning, not in memory, but in rebirth. He parked near the edge of a jagged cliffside walk where sea met stone and wind cut clean through thought. The wedding photo he had torn weeks ago? He still had the halves folded in his wallet. One showed Katerina's half smile. The other, his own. He walked toward the cliff's edge with the pieces in hand. The sea roared below, indifferent, wild. Alex looked down at the fragments of their perfect day. A long time ago, he would have clung to them, tried to tape them back together, make sense of what was broken. Now he simply let them go. The paper fluttered in the salt wind, spiraled upward once and disappeared over the edge. 2 halves caught in separate currents. Alex didn't watch them fall. He turned and walked away. Back in the city, life moved forward. Katerina stood alone in the same apartment, the same living room, only now it felt different. She hadn't changed the furniture, hadn't touched the photo shelf, but it all felt like someone else's home. She no longer lit the candles. The silence was no longer peaceful. She'd started checking his social media. Nothing had been posted. No cryptic quotes, no photos, no updates. It unnerved her. People like Alex weren't supposed to vanish. They were supposed to linger, leave behind pain, trail their heartbreak like breadcrumbs. But Alex didn't leave breadcrumbs. He left nothing. A month later, a mutual friend ran into Alex at a small bookstore. He looked different, lighter, clean-shaven, reading a copy of The Stranger by Camus and chatting with the owner about an upcoming author event. A friend mentioned him to Katerina a few days later. He seemed happy, the friend said, at peace, like a man who finally exhaled after holding his breath for years. Katerina smiled faintly, but her chest tightened. Not with jealousy, with finality. She hadn't just lost him, she had erased herself from the story he was now writing without her. Back in his apartment, Alex pinned a postcard above his desk, a photograph of the ocean, on the back in his handwriting. Closure doesn't come from answers, it comes when you stop needing them. He sat back, cracked his knuckles, and opened his laptop. Not to check messages, not to revisit old memories, but to write something new. Not a letter, not a confession, just the first line of a blank page.